Hello again and welcome back to another Warhammer 40k Imperial Guard after action tactics video. So this after action report is related to the last battle I had, which was versus other Johnny and his Chaos Black Legion forces. Just to clarify, two of my regular opponents are both called Johnny. One is the Chaos player and one is the Blood Angels player. So in case any of you are wondering why I said I hadn't played against Johnny for a while, that's because there's two Johnnies that I play against. So that's just that. Hopefully that's cleared up any confusion there. So this is, like I said, in related to the last battle report I did, which was against the Chaos Black Legion, which was a victory for the Guard, which is obviously great news. The Black Legion were thrown back into the Eye of Terror. If Cadia had been defended by Mordian, as far as I'm concerned, we never would have had this whole kerfuffle with the Eye of Terror and the Great Rift opening up across the galaxy, but we had to leave it up to those damn Cadians. Anyway, lessons learned from both sides of that battle, because even though I won, there are a few things that obviously I know, some things that stood out, some things that did well, some things that did poorly, some things that did okay, and that's both for the Imperial Guard side and for the Chaos sides. Because whilst I won that game, there were a few times when it wasn't looking certain, and there were a few times I went, holy crap, that new Chaos book is good. So, yeah. First thing I want to go over though is the mission, Malstrom. It's as fun as ever. All I've been doing is playing Eternal War recently, and playing Malstrom was a real change of pace, really different. I felt like the draw of the cards for me was okay. I got some good ones, I got some bad ones, I got some hard ones to achieve, like domination, for example, where I had to hold every objective. I just focused very strongly on the objectives. I wasn't that bothered about killing stuff. I think if I'd put my full effort into it, I probably could have tabled my opponent, but that was a risky strategy. The dice could have turned against me at any time. So instead, I said to myself, look, my dice aren't reliable. I'm going to focus on the Maelstrom, I'm going to focus on the mission. And even though my opponent had a really early lead on me in Maelstrom, I was able to just steadily build up point after point. I don't think a single turn went by where I didn't get any points, even if I just got one or two. And slowly but surely I built up and I won on Malstrom, which is great. The new tactical objective cards are cool. I like them. It will be interesting to see if I've kind of wasted my money if the Imperial Guard get their own tactical objectives. I'm not sure they will. But they may do. I think the generic tactical objective cards are probably fine for the Imperial Guard. We're fairly generic-ish faction. We're normal humans, aren't we? So having normal objective cards kind of works. We'll see. It would be cool to get them, but I'm not that bothered. So mission, I thought was cool. As always with Maelstrom, just play to the objectives. Tabling your opponent, what you kill isn't that important. As always, play to the objectives of Maelstrom, because if you don't, you'll get to turn 3 or 4, and your opponent will be running away with an incredible lead, and you won't be able to catch up. So I'm glad Malstrom is still the way it always has been. But moving on to the Imperial Guard, the list, what I used. So I just took my 1,000-point list, my 1,000-point Purimetry list, and tacked on 500 points of stuff I wanted to try. So because my opponent said to me he wanted to play a competitive game. And then he kind of turned up with a competitive list. I mean, it was min-max. He took the minimum number of troops he could get away with. And then took as many toys as he could, with all those obliterators and terminators and Abaddon. So I brought my competitive 1,000 points, and then I thought, well, let's take 500 points of stuff to try out, things to try. So 1,000 points of what I know works, 500 points of, hey, it may or may not work. And so the majority of those points were taken up by the Lemurus Exterminators, Pask and the normal tank commander, and also a couple of Psychers and the Tech Priest. That was pretty much the extra 500 points. Going through what worked overall on the list. Number 1, Scions. Scions are absolutely fantastic. Every game I've used them in. It's both in 7th and 8th edition, but especially in 8th edition. Every game I've used them in, they have absolutely dominated. They have absolutely destroyed. In this game, I deployed 4 squads of Scions, 2 command squads, 2 Melter regular squads. They came down and they deleted 10 Terminators of Slaanesh. That is a big deal. They easily earned their points back. Easily. I mean, there's roughly 500 points in Terminators there that just got disappeared in one turn. Scions were amazing. Scions were great. The plasma guns were amazing. Can't fault them. Melter guns were useful too, though. I found melter guns to be pretty useful. Yeah, they didn't have the range and to be in melter range, but it was quite nice not having to really worry about if I lost one of my officers, would I still be able to wound on 2s with overcharging? Melters have got that kind of safety blanket where they're strength 8 all the time, which means against toughness 4 opponents, they're always wounding on 2s. It's kind of a nice safety blanket. It's not essential though, and if I had the models, I probably would have taken all plasma. But I think the Melter's a little bit more flexible tactically. It is good against tanks, and it is good against infantry, heavy infantry. I feel like the Melter's quite a take-all-comer weapon, but the plasma is as well, obviously. The plasma is as well. It just isn't quite as good against vehicles. But overall, I think the tactic I went for, which was have sort of 2/3 plasma, 1/3 melter, I think that's a good ratio to have. A bit like with the conscripts to other infantry, where for every conscript you have another kind of infantryman, whether it's an infantry squad or a veteran squad. For every conscript you have an infantryman or a veteran. For plasma, I would say you want 2/3 plasma, 1/3 melter. You still want those melter guns in there. You still want the ability to do that D6 damage. I think melter is still fine to use. The Scions are absolutely great. Plasma veterans, oh my god, plasma veterans were amazing. No complaints there. Every game I use these things in, they do well, and they get targeted, and they generally die, and that's fine. But they're only 101 points for a squad. 101 points, and it's almost a throwaway unit. It's almost a throwaway unit. They work really well. They performed amazingly. The Scions, in my infantry base list now, the Scions and the veterans are the damage dealers. So those two units stood out as amazing. Stood out as the MVPs of the list. Moving on to what sort of did okay. The units that didn't do amazingly but didn't do poorly, they kind of turned up and just did their job. I would say infantry squads and conscripts. Those two units just did what they do. Conscripts just absorbed damage. I don't think I ever actually bothered to shoot my conscript lasguns because I didn't. It obviously takes a while to record one of these battle reports. That was a relatively quick one. It only took us 4 hours to do that battle report. And we were playing quickly. If I'd been messing around throwing handfuls of conscript dice, I don't think it would have taken. It would have probably taken us another hour. So I didn't even bother shooting my lasguns most of the time. I think I had one turn when I shot those Chaos Marines with my conscripts. That was it. And I only got like 40 shots out of them, so it wasn't even a big deal. Yeah, conscripts, but they did their job. Their job is not to do damage. I say this over and over again to all those players out there which say, "Oh, conscripts are overpowered. They do so much damage." It's like, no, conscripts don't do any damage. You're just people to shoot them because they have to, and maybe that's overpowered because they're forced to shoot conscripts. But I don't know. All I can say is the conscripts were not. My opponent at no point did he issue any complaints about the conscripts. He was able to melt through them very quickly. There was, 5 left at the end of the game? Yeah. He was able to melt through them pretty quickly. One 30-man blob just disappeared on one turn. The majority of them disappeared on another turn. I mean, it meant my opponent was forced to target them, but they didn't. They just did their job. They didn't do outstandingly. And the same goes for infantry squads. They slung out the occasional las cannon shot, which an occasional plasma shot, which helped to bring down a Terminator here, wound and obliterator there. But overall, they didn't do badly, they didn't do well, they just did what they do. They held the line, there were bodies on the ground, they were okay. Generally speaking, they got the firepower in whilst my other units, like my Sounds and my Veterans, were dying. My more obvious threats were dying, my infantry squads were running around doing objectives, which is good. That's what I took them for, to be a low-level, low-key unit that can still do damage, yet will be taking objectives, either Malstrom or not Malstrom. So what performed poorly? Because obviously it goes out saying things that did their job as well, commissars, company commanders, they all performed as they should. What performed poorly was, number one, the astropaths. I was woefully unimpressed with the astropaths. And some of you will be saying, well, but it's only 15 points. How could you be unimpressed with 15 points? Well, one, most of the time, I was trying to use Smite most of the time, because most of the time, I wasn't really getting. The two I had on the set. I didn't really. I didn't have a lot of time to like mess around with choosing my psychic power, so I just put the +1 armor save one on both of them for a bit of redundancy. But they just failed to get it off on 2 dice. I think I made 2 psychic powers the whole game. 1 shield of the Emperor, whatever it is, where I get +1 armor save, and 1 smite, and the smite did 1 wound. They were a waste of time. Honestly, they were a waste of time. In fact, I burnt 2 command points trying to get Smite to work, and it didn't, because it's only 1d6 for those guys. Yeah, no, I'm going to be honest, not impressed. I think with Astropaths, honestly, with Psychers, I should say, honestly, it's probably best just to go the Primaris. If you want to actually have an active role in the Psychic phase, don't bother with the Astropath. Just take the Primaris. Just do it. I was unlucky. I won't lie, I was unlucky with my Psychers, but they didn't add anything to my army in any way, shape or form. I'm not smite spamming. I have 5 Psychers. If I want to smite spam, I can. I've got 6 Psycho models, sorry, but I wasn't trying to, and I just feel like having a couple of Ashpaths didn't really do very much. I'm sure if I use them for a few more games, maybe they'll do better, but I was unimpressed, to say the least. The fact that you're limited to only casting each power once generally limits the usefulness of Astropaths. Generally. I could see maybe taking like 3 Astropaths, 1 for each power, and then taking like 2 Primaris and using them as smite spammers. I don't know, maybe, but still, nah. I think Primaris will go home, basically. It's worth paying the points, I think. Astropaths on paper look amazing because, it's 15 points for Psyker, but there's a reason they're so cheap. It's because they're mostly rubbish. What else performed badly was the Exterminators. Yeah, Exterminators are shit. They're really, really bad. I didn't do any damage with the Exterminator autocannons. All damage that came from those Exterminators came from the heavy bolters. I did 3-4 wounds with the heavy bolters in total. It wasn't great. They just don't put out enough firepower, and with my dice, I mean, I'm unlucky, but I was rolling 3s to hit with 4 dice, and I'd only ever hit with 2. I never hit with more than 2, and they're only -1 armor save. So it's like it suffers from the grenade launcher syndrome, where it's only -1 armor save. Sure, you can hit, sure you can wound, but your opponent just saves it. And I was shooting them at kind of their intended target again. Multi-wound infantry, like with the grenade launchers. I was shooting the autocannons at multi-wound infantry, trying to take advantage of that 2 damage, and those Blitz were just shrugging it off. Just shrugging it off. I shot it once, I think, I shot one of my Exterminators once at the one of the Rhinos and didn't do any damage. It was just like, just past it. They hit with 2, wounded with 1, he just made a 4+ save, done. So, yeah, I'm not... The Exterminator autocannon, without a doubt, needs to go up to either 6 or 8 shots to be worth it. Without that, it's a waste of time. Yeah, kind of a thing. I'm starting to come to the end of bringing Pask along in my games. his reputation just precedes him. And the moment you tell your opponent that you have taken Pask, they do everything they can to do a turn 1 nuke. Every opponent I've played in 8th edition, since that tournament, since everyone's sort of got everything settled down, every opponent has basically nuked Pask. Nuke Pask, and then worry about the other stuff later. So, there you go. Honourable mention. Honourable mention to a unit which impressed me no end, despite the fact it did no damage all game, which was my Tech Priest Engine Seer. The Tech Priest Engine Seer was absolutely fantastic. My opponent genuinely was getting very frustrated by him, because my opponent would shoot one of my tanks and do some damage to it, and then lo and behold, that little Tech Priest Engine Seer, beep boop beep boop, he would just repair my vehicle. I think he, on average, the first time he got D3 hull points, he got a 3, then for 2 or 3 turns he got 1, and the final 2 turns he got a 2 and a 3, I think. Or final turn he got a 2 and a 3, I can't remember. But yeah, he genuinely, I think we worked it out that he roughly repaired between 10 and 12 hull points worth of damage, which is fantastic. 52 point model. I would say to all tank commanders out there, all of you which enjoy using Leman Russes, don't leave home without a Tech Priest Engine Seer. He's an absolutely cracking little workhorse, and I can safely say that he kept my tanks in the fight that little bit longer. It's a shame that the tanks weren't very good. It's a shame they were exterminated and they weren't really doing anything, but I can safely say that he was a nuisance to my opponent. My opponent said, I was like, oh, before I forget, I think this is about turn 3, I said, oh, before I forget, I'm going to repair my tank. And my opponent went, oh, fuck, can you just stop doing that already? That was his genuine response. And he wasn't like really, really voodooed, wasn't really put out by the Tech Priest Engine Seer, but it was another little psychological sort of weapon in the toolbox that my opponent just had another bit of pressure added onto him. Oh, you did 3 hull points while 2 of them have been repaired. It's just another kick in the teeth. So Tech Priest Engine Seer gets an honourable mention. Absolutely cracking unit. Definitely earned its points back. Kept those obliterators busy all game by repairing the tanks non-stop. And at the end of it, my tank commander was on full health, as far as I remember. So that's it, guys. Really, I absolutely love the battle. It's always a treat playing against other Johnny. He is a really, really good opponent. He's always got an interesting Chaos Army to play against. It's never the same list. It's never Assault Cannon spam. And absolutely, I really enjoyed the game. Learned lots and lots and lots. One thing I wanted to say about the Chaos stuff quickly was as Guard players, is be aware of their stratagems. Their stratagems double the amount of firepower they're putting out. Absolutely incredible firepower. My opponent was obviously originally took his Chaos Space Marines as a spare unit, and when they jumped out of those rhinos and they used a stratagem to give them loads of bolter shots, and then they charged into the unit and they just cut them apart. They were very impressive. Chaos Space Marines, I think Chaos Space Marines, if they bring a sufficient number of Marines, we're talking 30, maybe 40 Marines, and they just apply a different stratagem to each one to boost their firepower. This one gets more bolter shots, this one gets to shoot twice, this one gets something else. Rerolls to wound or something. This one gets rerolls to hit. I think massed bolter fire can easily be achieved by the Chaos Space Marines, and I can tell you it helped them clean through the infantry hordes really easily. I think the most damage I suffered from my opponent was from bloody bolter rounds, because he was able to sling out so many of them from just a 10-15 Marines. Bolter rounds that was what caught my attention. The Chaos Space Marine stratagems were very, very potent. Be aware of them. Just because you're facing down 10 Chaos Space Marines doesn't mean you've got that flank secured. 10 Chaos Space Marines with adequately led, with backed up by sufficient stratagems, will clean out a 30-man blob. 30, 40 men of infantry. 15 of them easily will. 10 will probably just about do it, might struggle. 15, 20 Chaos Marines backed up by sufficient stratagems, they're going to clean out a platoon. They're going to clean out 30, 40 guys, easy. So be aware of that, Guard commanders. Be very aware of that. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope lots and lots of lessons have learned. I hope you found it useful and informative. And of course, please leave lots of comments down in the comment section so that we can all share knowledge and share experience. And I hope to see you guys next time.